If you've been listening to this channel, if you're familiar with this show, if you've been listening to me over the history of this podcast, you know that I love the Toronto Fringe. It is, and I'm not the only person who sees it this way. It's theater Christmas. It's the time of year when the attention of so much of the arts community and the community in Toronto is focused on theater and specifically on the Toronto Fringe. There's so much excitement, so many interesting artists to discover, shows to see, premieres, things that you would never see anywhere else. Some that will go on to become the next Kim's Convenience, which of course did start at the Toronto Fringe, or it might just be something that sits with you and stays with you for a long time. There are shows that I saw at the Toronto Fringe even ten years ago or more, and I still think about those shows. There's a lot coming up, and I'm doing something a little different this year. I'm going to be talking to a few fringe artists specifically, and then also some special episodes of Stageworthy where I have a 15-minute conversation with a number of artists at the Fringe, just to maximize the number of people whose shows I can share with you. And there's a lot of exciting shows just on the horizon that you can see here. Some of those episodes will be released on on the regular Tuesday. Some of them will be special episodes, just sort of like I think I'm going to drop those on the Thursday of the week. So keep your eye on the feed for that, or keep your eye on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube, because that's where you'll find all of these conversations and some really interesting shows to discover. One of the unique things about each city that hosts a fringe, each festival itself, is they're all so different. What an audience in Toronto is looking for will be different from what an audience in Montreal is looking for. Winnipeg, Edmonton, all of these places. There's so much difference and nuance between all of the cities. One of the things that I've been thinking about lately is the way that we talk about fringe, especially in Toronto. There are some cities, Winnipeg and Edmonton, come to mind where uh, fringe takes over the city. Everybody knows that it's happening. All of the media outlets are talking about it. There isn't a person in those cities that doesn't know that the festival is taking place. They're massive, and often I think in Toronto I wonder if we could talk more about what fringe is. There have been times when I've been talking to people who are not theater people or from outside of the community. And when I mention the Fringe Festival, they don't know what fringe is. And I wonder sometimes if, and this is sort of a symptom, I think, around the way that we talk about theater in general, but that we make an assumption that people know what we're talking about. So if I say I'm in a fringe festival, that we're making an assumption that people know what that means. And I think sometimes we're wrong about that. That there are people who would benefit from a campaign of knowledge, like just to make sure that the potential audience knows what fringe is. But I realize that that's hard. It's hard in this city. We've lost so many of the publications that used to talk about the fringe. Now Magazine in its heyday, even I Magazine, for those who remember I Magazine, just newspapers and publications that were the official partner, the news partner of the festival. And we've lost that. We've lost a lot of coverage that used to happen in a lot of the media, and so I realize that it is difficult to do that. And I mean, I don't know what the solution is, um, but I think that the Toronto Fringe is exciting enough and vibrant enough that more people should know about it. That it's something that deserves all the attention of not just arts media, but in general. There's so much excitement that happens. So many things worth seeing that I think that more of the media should be focused on that. One of the reasons for me doing this podcast is to to highlight as many artists as possible. And I know there are other reviewers, other podcasts that may do that as well. And one of the things that I am going to do in the coming weeks is to have a sit down with some theater podcasters, and we're going to talk about Fringe. We're going to look at at the Fringe program, and we'll go over it. We'll see what we're excited about and talk about what's new at the Fringe this year, and just try to sort of make sense of what's in the program. So that's and we're gonna do that live, and then I'll release that maybe in the regular feed, maybe as an extra as well. So, but that'll definitely be on YouTube, and I'll get an audio version for that as well. So a lot to think about, a lot to look at. But I have always wanted Fringe to be as big as possible and to have as many eyes on it as possible. And so I can only do so much. Each podcaster can only do so much. And there is no easy solution to getting the word out about Fringe because of the way that our arts media has been decimated in recent years. And so not only do we find arts organizations that are struggling for funding, the audiences are not coming back in the way that they were before. And so we have to find new ways to bring people in. And again, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm hoping maybe that's something we can talk about. Maybe that is something that we can join in on and find new ways to talk about Fringe. And maybe it's not something we can solve this year, but I would love to have a conversation where we can talk about the Fringe in general and how can we lift it up. So I don't know. Tell me what you think about Fringe. Tell me what you love about it, and even let's talk about, I love it. So I like to talk about the things that could be better, as well as the things I love, because everything can be better. And the more we love something, the more we want it to be better. So I'm perfectly interested, and I would love to hear and talk about the all of it, everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. And you know what? We should talk about that on Patreon as well. I do have a Patreon, and the patrons who subscribe to that help me to make this show not only financially by covering some of the costs of doing a show like this, because it does cost money. I You get to listen to this show or watch the show on YouTube for free, but it does cost me money in terms of hosting, in terms of equipment, in terms of editing software, and more to make the show. So I am so grateful to all of the patrons who have chosen to back the show. And so if you would like to help me make the show, and because not only do the patrons get the joy of supporting this show, but they also get preview episodes. So the episodes are released to them in advance of the regular feed. But also, when there are things to discuss, when we there are issues, topics that I might want to cover, I go to the patrons first, and we can talk about the issues, where people what people are interested in theater wise, and also just if I have an idea of something I want to cover, they'll help me make sure that I'm on the right track and not going too far afield. So if you want to be a part of this show in that way, or at all, if you want to back the show, you can go to patreon.com/stageworthy, and you can join as a patron. It just costs $7 Canadian a month to become a patron, and you will have my gratitude, as well as to take advantage of the perks. And also, as things go on, as time goes on, if we grow the Patreon, then we grow the podcast, and I can do more with the podcast and give more to the patrons. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure that you like this episode, and also hit the subscribe button, and also click that bell icon so that every time I release an episode, you are notified. And if you're listening to the audio version, make sure that you are subscribed and following the podcast, so that every time an episode is released, it downloads directly to your phone. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure that you leave a rating and a comment about the show. Those kinds of ratings help the podcast to go higher in the algorithm. More people will discover it. The more people give ratings to the podcast. So if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please make sure to do that. And again, I would be forever grateful for that too. My guest this week is Rebecca Perry. Rebecca is an actor, singer, playwright, and producer based in Toronto. She has been seen on your TV, from Hallmark movies to The Handmaid's Tale. She's been on so many things in film and television. And she's also the creator of Confessions of a Redheaded Coffee Shop Girl, as well as we discover in this episode, the two other shows that came out of that, as well as James Bond, The Songs of 007, From Judy to Betty, her cabaret, and Confessions of a Redheaded Coffee Shop Girl is returning to the Toronto Fringe this year. I think it was maybe 10 years ago that it first debuted, and also to the Edinburgh Fringe later this year. So, well, again, for the 10th anniversary of doing that, Rebecca's shows sell out everywhere. Rebecca has the distinction of selling out in both Toronto and in the Edinburgh Fringe. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation with Rebecca. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Rebecca Perry. Fun fact, Rebecca, I don't know if you remember this, but you were the first guest on Stageworthy.
Very first
Guest on Stageworthy, all the way back in whatever year that was, because I can never remember what year, but it's like almost 8 years ago.
Yeah, I know. Like it's been a hot sec. Thanks for letting me be the first one.
It's also appropriate because when you came on, we were talking about Edinburgh Fringe.
Yeah. The first time,
exactly. And here you are getting ready to go back to the Edinburgh Fringe with Confessions of a Redheaded Coffee Shop Girl, which, you did again, like 10 years ago at the Toronto Fringe. Which venue were you at then?
So I was at the Annex.
At the Annex.
Theater. I don't believe is a venue with Toronto Fringe now, but
No.
I loved that venue for the Fringe. It's just such a nice, intimate space. And you are correct. We sold out the run, which I was very grateful for.
Yeah. I mean, I love the Annex Theater years ago, before Randolph came into the picture and sort of took it over. It was one of my favorite venues in this city to perform in because it has that thrust stage that's also intimate. So you have a lot of freedom of working in this space. Always loved it.
And you kind of have two levels with like the stairs and the multiple entrances. It just gives you a lot to play with.
Not only did you sell out the Toronto Fringe, but you also had I believe you sold out your Edinburgh Fringe.
Yes, I've sold out my month-long Edinburgh Fringe run at the Gilded Balloon, which is like sort of one of the four big venues that almost like seasons during the Fringe. And so what's kind of very full circle, we're having a lot of full circles today, Phil, is the fact that I'm going back to the Gilded Balloon. And when I first went to them, it was their 30th anniversary at the Fringe. Now it's their 40th anniversary at the Fringe.
Anniversaries all around.
All around. So for me, it's the 10th. For them, it's the 40th. And they actually approached me saying like, hey, we've got a much more sort of theatrical venue that we're adding to our plethora of venues, if you will. Because as you know, everything is a venue at the Fringe. You got a van, it's a venue.
Edinburgh is wild. I've never had that opportunity to be, but everybody who comes back is like, you won't believe what was a venue.
My mind gets blown every year because what can be a venue just gets crazier and crazier.
Selling out a month-long run at the Edinburgh Fringe has got to feel pretty good.
I can say it's like one of the top 3 moments of my life. Easy peasy. It was incredible. And I think, and we'll see if this is true this time as well, just a lot of what I was peddling was relatable content. Edinburgh, I now say Edinburgh because the locals have told me Edinburgh makes me sound way too Canadian. So it's Edinburgh. But anyways, like they have a huge coffee scene. They have a huge indie theater scene. And they also, there's a lot of redheads.
The other thing that I'm thinking is relatable content has got to be, it actually would make you stand out because from what I hear, there's like, during the Edinburgh Fringe, there's like, there's circus people peddling their shows, there's jugglers, there's magicians, everybody's just along the Royal Mile, just like doing all this stuff. And just to have a show that's like relatable has got to be kind of a breath of fresh air for some people.
Well, and while I'm flyering, I bring like a vat of coffee with me. And so if it's raining and people are cold, I'm like, would you like a sample of this espresso from this local coffee shop around the corner? Like I'll work with different coffee shops every day. And it is like an opening way to talk to people.
Brilliant, brilliant. Who doesn't want a nice cup of coffee?
Right. And it's just like a little sample size. So you don't have to like carry it around the whole day. You can just have it while
Right.
you're walking down the Royal
Yeah.
Mile and handed 12 million flyers.
Let's back up a bit because we have a lot to cover in this episode, and I want to talk about because you are going to be doing Confessions of a Redheaded Coffee Shop Girl at the Toronto Fringe as well as in Edinburgh. So for those who might who were curious, what is the pitch? What is aside from what's obvious in the title? What is Confessions of a Redheaded Coffee Shop Girl?
Well, let me tell you, because also over the years, as I'm sure you can imagine, like it's evolved and changed a bit. Um, well, firstly, we're at the Alumni Theater, another venue that starts with A, which I find very full circle. But yes, Confessions of a Redheaded Coffee Shop Girl is a solo show created by myself. And basically, I play 20 plus characters in the same coffee shop. Ultimately, it's a commentary on human observation and how we interact with each other as a society. And it's all through the lens of Joni Little, the redheaded coffee shop girl, who's a recent anthropology grad. And she's sort of like, insert binoculars, studying the customers of her coffee shop jungle as though she were Jane Goodall herself, bushwhacking through the Tanzanian jungle to study the chimpanzees. And so that includes not only playing a bunch of coffee shop customers that you'd recognize as familiar characters in the annex, because that's where that coffee shop is set, but also when Joni goes home at night, and I don't think this is a spoiler because the show's been around for 10 plus years, she talks to a picture of Jane Goodall, and a lot of silly moments ensue with that as well, because she sees Jane Goodall as sort of, her guide to life. Like she set the footprint that Joni wants to follow in.
You mentioned like it changes. I find it, especially as you perform a show more and more in front of more and more audiences, the way that a show can evolve
Yes.
is really quite fascinating. The way that you can just sort of like realize, oh, this scene isn't doing quite what I thought it was going to do, and you can make
Sure.
those edits. So a show can like evolve in a way that, as a young performer and writer, I don't think I ever consider. I thought, okay, you finish it, you perform it, you're done. But that's not the way it works.
Yeah.
Tell me about the changes and how the show has evolved.
Absolutely. I think the best example I actually have is most recently, the show was on a tour of the prairies. So we were at 4 different theaters and 1 coffee shop for like a little teaser performance, which was so fun. That was in Medicine Hat because they just have this really cool like indie coffee shop scene. So before the show, I was like, could I do something here? Of course, we wound up selling it out because of that. So hey, but yeah, honestly, getting to play around with an audience because the show it's loosely based on certain characters that I met while I was actually working at Aroma Espresso at the corner of Bloor and Bathurst. It's now a Value Buds, but it was an Aroma Espresso for a very long time. But anyways, because it's loosely based on interactions with humans, I play with the audience every night and see what sticks. And I literally found new lines that just simply happened from sort of the energy or the sort of the vibes I was getting from the most recent audiences. So I think the answer is how it changes is it becomes more playful because I get a sense of what is landing and what isn't. And since the show is toured around to almost every, well, not every continent, but quite a few English speaking countries in this world, I really get a vibe of what is universal. And of course, as they say, tell your specific story and it will become universal. And I actually think that's true because the more I dug into what I was saying, the more I expanded, the more I could sort of feel, because you can feel that energy if people are like buckling in with you along for the ride, you know?
Yeah, you absolutely can. I think that a lot of times people who haven't performed, especially people who haven't performed a solo show,
Yeah.
don't quite understand how the audience informs things.
It's almost like improv. Like it does border on that. Like, cause it's a relationship with you, the first character, the audience, the second character.
Yeah, and it is. I remember when I was in the early days of rehearsing my solo show, The Commandment, my director Richard Bone would be like, "So you're talking to the audience," and I had never occurred to me that the audience was my scene partner,
I
and I
know.
would have to make eye contact. But after doing it a few times, it was like, "Oh, of course. Who else are you going to be talking to?"
Yeah. I love that show, by the way, just
Oh,
for
thank
the
you so
record.
much.
It's so fun.
There's actually, just sort of like as a similar thing, there was as I was performing, there was a moment when I was like, there needs to be a beat here.
Mhm.
And it sort of came to me in like the moment where I filled in a line about God talking about nobody understanding what Buddhists say. And it just sort of like it wasn't written and it was like there needs to be something here and it popped in and I tried it and it worked. It's become part of the script ever since just because it it worked and it continues to work. So it's the audience like the it's amazing. You feel the moment when the audience is like there's something wanting and so you fill it in.
That's a really good way of saying it, actually. And it's even true, I find, when you're playing multiple characters in a conversation, because there's always moments where as one certain character, you wanna break the fourth wall and, like, let them in on the joke and stuff like that too.
It's such a I mean, I think it is one of it's such a valuable exercise as a performer to perform alone and realize what that feels like and to sort of like gain a mastery of an audience.
Yeah, it makes you more confident all around, whether you're in a Shakespearean play, whether you're doing film and TV or even just a voiceover, like, something about having the confidence to just engage in that kind of crazy relationship with, like, 300 strangers helps you as a performer be like, "I'm trustworthy, like, I can bring you some delight and we'll all enjoy it together," you know?
Yeah. Years ago, I was an usher during the original Toronto run of Les Miserables,
Oh, yeah.
and, the actor who played Thénardier, Graham I can't remember his
I
last
know, I
name.
can literally picture his face. I know who
Yeah,
you're talking about.
dude, as an usher, you watch the show a lot, and so we came to the I started to realize, "Oh, he is so in tune with the audience, he'll
Yeah,
drop something slightly different, and it will always land for that audience," and it's like,
yep.
I think that that's the kind of thing that you can get from a solo performance is
Yeah.
to know how to feel what the audience needs in the moment.
Absolutely, like, to sense that level of playfulness or, like, how game they are for what style of humor, 100%. Sometimes I make, like, a silly dad joke at the beginning of my show, which sort of thanks the theater venue while making a joke about the theater being hard to find, and just from that joke alone, I get a sense of what kind of audience I'm stepping into, and that truly sets the tone the entire night.
It's always good to have, like, some kind of hint for yourself in
Yeah.
there to know, like, is this gonna be a good are we in sync, or do I have to work really hard with
Yeah,
you?
yeah, that's true. Do I have to, like, wake you up a little bit? Your coffee hasn't kicked in yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, um, going back to the Edinburgh Fringe,
Yeah,
and you're returning there after 10 years, and when you went, you had never been to the Edinburgh Fringe with this show.
brand new.
You were brand new. I mean, I think you had some people who were able to, like, prepare you before you
Yes.
were dropped in.
I had a producer that very much gave me, like, the nitty-gritty and also, like, sort of, made me aware of, like, don't go here unless you are wanting to tour because it's so much work. You've gotta go with a goal, and so I think that really helped me focus my energy on getting there.
Right. So, I mean, that opens up another
Oh,
entirely
yes.
another avenue of conversation about how the Edinburgh Fringe opened up kind of Europe for you.
Yeah.
But also, I'm curious about what what you didn't know then that you know now that prepares you to take on this massive fringe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the one of the biggest things for me is I won't go unless I get my venue of choice because oftentimes the venue you pick either will or will not have a built-in marketing house. That's huge. And will or will not already like invest in postering for their venue around town and creating awareness. Because one thing that is different from Canadian Fringe is you can't put a poster anywhere without paying for it. There's this giant scheme called Out of Hand, and it is out of hand because it's crazy. They put up posters all over the city, and you sort of have to pay into this scheme. So if you know your venue is already doing that, that's huge. I also would not go if I did not have at least 6 months to prepare. Because by month 6, you should have your venue because it's not like a lottery. You have to sort of write a love letter to a venue and be like, "Here's why I really feel you need me in your season." Because they sort of call their Edinburgh Fringe like a season, I guess, because some of these venues, like the one I'm with, Gilded Balloon, has like 50 shows. Um, so yeah, so yeah, Venue of choice, 6 months to prepare, because then you can also get reasonably priced plane tickets. At the like 12-month mark, I was already applying for grants. Same with the 9-month mark. And we can always touch on that later too. But I think those are the big things. But also like having time to contact every producer, every theater that you hope to tour with after. All that has to happen before you land. Because once you land, there's all these networking events where you kind of need to already know what you're going in to pitch, and you have to be very confident. Like, here's why I think we're a good fit, which, as a Canadian, is a little jarring sometimes. If not, I can talk about how much I love coffee. I can talk about how much I love the Jays, but I can't. It was like a skill I had to learn before I arrived, and it was a good challenge because now I think it's served me since then as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Any single fringe festival on the Canadian circuit,
Yes.
it's whatever, 4, 10, whatever, 2 weeks long
Yeah.
is a slog. And usually by the time you're done that 2 weeks, you're
Oh, you're
like,
spent.
pretty spent. Now, the Edinburgh Fringe is a month long.
Yep.
How do you get through that marathon of a fringe and still have, I don't know, some semblance of self left at the end?
That was the best question I've ever been asked. The way you phrased that, 5 stars. Well, I mean, besides copious amounts of coffee, honestly, picking and choosing, when you're gonna have an alcoholic beverage at a networking event, actually getting 8 hours of sleep. It's real. Basically, you're like an anti-rock star. Like, you truly have to behave like a human that needs all the basics. But also, I think the biggest thing for me was actually like just sort of to feel creatively inspired is I would try and see at least one show I was interested in before mine and at least one or two after, because it honestly just kept me so inspired and wanting to like get to that level of performance. And also, this might sound sort of silly, but the first time I went and the second and third too, I invited so many friends like, hey, there's a couch in the apartment I'm staying on. If you want to come hang out with me for a few days, let me show you the festival. And I think, just having like this wonderful rotating door of like familiar faces, it really keeps you energized as well.
Yeah. I mean, you can't promo all the time. You have to have time. I mean, if you're in the fringe, you might as well be seeing shows
Yes,
and meeting artists.
it
I
would be silly not
if
to.
it would, and if all you were there to do was to promo yourself, like, why? I think you'd be missing out.
Oh, totally. And also there's one thing that's different about the Edinburgh Fringe is there's a whole month-long calendar of workshops you can take that range from like how to turn your clown show into like a 2-hour, 2-act show to like come meet this producer like Francesca Moody who did Fleabag and hear her journey of taking it from the Fringe to TV. Like there's incredible workshops that are free for artists to come and witness. But also on top of that, like I said, there's mixers, there's networking events. The Canadian Embassy always wants to celebrate all the Canadians that are there. Like everyone is trying to help you do the best you can, which is so heartening. And if I'm being honest, half of the Canadian connections I made in Edinburgh, which is crazy but true.
That's amazing. Um, I think that fringes like the Toronto Fringe have gotten better at
Yes.
creating a network. Um, it used it used to be that you just sort of got thrown into the mix when Fringe started, but now they have pods and groups, and there's like opportunities so that you at least
Amazing.
know people's names and things when you are getting in there. But the idea of workshops and things, the Montreal Fringe a
Yes.
few times has had workshops and things as the Fringe starts. I remember the first time I went there, there was a how to flyer in Montreal, like this sort of
That's so
thing.
smart.
And the person who was leading it said the phrase that carried me through the Fringe, and still I believe today about theater in general, which is there's audience enough for everyone,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we're not
100%.
we're not in competition. If somebody goes see your show, they could come see my show, and just because they go to see your show doesn't mean they're not going to see my show. More
Yeah.
audience for everyone means more audience for everyone.
Ah, I love that. Montreal Fringe is one of the only Canadian ones I have not had a chance to do. It's on my bucket list.
The Montreal Fringe is sort of unique. It's one of a lot of touring artists start their season there.
Yeah.
Partially because it's the party fringe.
Oh, I know. I went there for my birthday one year, like me, Derek Chua, and a bunch of like the Sex T-Rex gang, like just a whole bunch of Canadians were there one year. So I just drove down, saw a bunch of fringe shows, and then I was like, oh my goodness, these people are like the party cats.
There's no other fringe like it.
Oh my God.
And that makes it very unique. It's also an extremely warm fringe
That's what I've heard
to start at. And but it is if you're gonna go, you better be prepared to party.
Noted.
Now, this is the Confessions of a Redheaded Coffee Shop Girl is not the only solo show that you've created, but it did open doors for you by going to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
That has allowed you to take some of your shows to the UK and other places. What did Edinburgh do for you that was completely unique?
Sure. So I think the biggest thing was, and kudos to Canada for this, like the Canadian Embassy, as well as a whole bunch of different Canadian granting bodies, like the Canada Heritage Group and all that kind of stuff. They would put on like mixers that would give Canadians specifically a chance to sort of mix and mingle. Also, the first 3 times I was there, the Canada Hub was still going, which was like a Canadian curated spot near Summer Hall, which is like a very respected venue. And they threw a bunch of events as well. So I think the biggest thing was I was able to go there, and just the simple act of putting a face to a name, because this name had already been emailing these people 3 to 4 times. It just gave them a chance to see that I was somebody who took touring seriously and was actively ready to put the work in on my side of things to tour. Because that's the other thing. It's not like someone just says, hey, come to my theater. It's like, hey, come to my theater. How many months do you need to secure this grant for traveling? How long do you need to make sure your team is available, et cetera, et cetera? Because even though I'm a solo show, I still need a stage manager. Ideally, if it's a bigger theater, we want a musician playing the music live. There's a lot of moving parts. So I think it was a chance to show who I was and that I was going to go the distance, to quote Disney's Hercules.
Yeah.
Where that came from. But you know what? I think it also gave me a chance to show on a world stage that I would take seriously, the act of not just getting there and selling tickets, but really trying to like make a splash, I guess. And I don't think I realized at the time me taking that seriously really would open doors, because one of the first things international presenters say to me is, oh, I remember you sold out in, I don't know, 2017 or something like that. And I'm like, yes, 2015. Yes, that was me. Also, this is going to sound so silly, but people have always slightly made fun of me for having these crazy long, self-explanatory titles. In Edinburgh, it means people know what they're getting into and they'll take a chance on it. And so that has also been the same for presenters and producers that are like, oh, this sounds kind of cute. What's your audience age range? Who do you think would benefit from seeing this show? And that's where a lot of touring started, to Ireland, to Scotland, to the UK, even to America. Like it was crazy.
I mean, those are also questions that you knew having performed the show in Toronto, right? So
because I needed to make sure it was like ready before I went. Yeah.
I mean, you kind of have to. If you're going to do the biggest fringe in the world, you better make sure you're ready.
Because you got 3,000 other shows competing to, get someone in the door. Now, like you said, there really is an audience for all shows. I truly believe that. And I believe it in Edinburgh too. But I guess, certain time slots, like the 7:00 slot, have ultra uber famous UK comedians also doing a show. So there are certain time slots where you have to try quite hard to get your audience, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing. It's not just theater. It's
comedy.
It's comedians from all over the world coming to do their hour in a venue.
When we already have like Netflix specials.
Exactly. So you're competing with like the some of the most famous comedians in the world for like time.
Legit. Yeah, absolutely. It's all the ones you'd find at like JFL.
Here.
Yeah. For sure, which is why I'm also actually, just to add to that question of like, what are things you know now that you didn't know before? I will always be very careful about getting a time slot that is kind of before the famous comedy starts. So ideally, before 7:30 p.m. is an ideal time slot for me because unlike Canadian fringes, you get the same time slot every day.
Oh, see,
Yeah.
that makes it so much easier to plan your day.
Yes, you can have a life. Absolutely.
You can have a life instead of like always being like, what time? I've the problem with like doing a fringe festival is sometimes you just spend the day going like, am I performing today? What time am I performing
Cool.
at? Because
Totally.
the schedule changes.
You have whiplash practically. Absolutely.
But some of the other shows that you've created, again, they're solo shows,
Yes.
but they were. I mean, you've got from Judy to Betty,
Yes.
the Bond. Was there a Bond show
Oh,
you
yeah, yeah.
did
So
too? Yeah.
there's 3 Coffee Shop Girl shows now: Confessions, Adventures, and Christmas with a Redheaded Coffee Shop Girl. So it's like a trilogy now. There's From Judy to Betty, the stars of old Hollywood, and then there's Bond, James Bond, the music of 007, as well as a whole bunch of other like sort of more cabaret style concerts. But I'd say those are like shows.
Yeah. I mean, it must be great having like a Christmas show that you can like additionally pitch to the venues to be like, hey, if you only have time November, December, I have a Christmas show.
I have legitimately said that exact sentence at least 12 times earlier this year. And it's yeah, no, it's actually kind of crazy. Canada, a lot of the sort of big like roadhouse theaters, they always want like 12 Christmas shows, so why not? And it's very much, like it's so like warm and cozy to have like Christmas coffee shop songs and like all these characters doing their Christmas traditions. Like it's just so cute. And it's actually what's crazy is the one place I haven't performed that in is Toronto. So hoping after the Toronto Fringe doing Confessions of a Redheaded Coffee Shop Girl, the original show, I can then hopefully maybe in November do the Christmas show because it actually kind of fits in before Joni goes to Tanzania in Adventures of a Redheaded Coffee Shop Girl, which is like the final one now. It's
Mm.
Lion King 1.5. Like right in between, there's Christmas with a redheaded coffee shop girl.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Now, right now, as we record this as people are listening to this, you do have a GoFundMe to help raise
Yes.
money for getting to the Edinburgh Fringe.
Yes.
Talk to me about crowdfunding and the challenges and also pitfalls of it.
Absolutely. Well, I guess firstly, thank you already to the, I believe, 91 people that have donated. Like, I'm so moved. I was so afraid of crowdfunding, Phil, that I hadn't done a crowdfund campaign since 2013, like when I had like just graduated theater school, and it scared me so much. It took until now to do one. But you know what? It's another one of those things like what I didn't know then and I know now came in handy. So I think the biggest thing that I've learned is if you are very open about why you're fundraising, people will totally rally around you. Whereas I think last time my message wasn't super clear and it was just like, I want to put on a show. Whereas this time, to be perfectly honest with your wonderful listeners, I have been applying for grants to get to Edinburgh for almost a year and a half now. And unfortunately, as we all know, there have absolutely been some cuts to arts funding. And so, where I normally wouldn't go to Edinburgh without maybe 2 grants under my belt, I was able to get 0. So I was honest, like in a respectful way. I was just like, look, I'm having trouble getting everything together, and there are deadlines coming up quickly. And I just sort of posted like a Facebook message, and like so many people from so many different parts of my life sort of came out of the woodwork and were like, this is something we'd absolutely support. Like, you've already proven that you will work hard when you get there. So it's something we can get behind. So I think one of the pitfalls is if your message isn't clear and if you haven't kind of already shown this is something you will do, and go the distance, I guess. Um, it's a good sentence. And so I think that's one big thing is I think I was able to really get down to the heart of my message because within a week we had already gotten to like, oh my goodness, like 60% of the goal, which was incredible. And now I think we're at like 81% or something like that, which is so amazing because it's only the beginning of week 3. Another thing I learned is like never be afraid to you don't have to just keep posting the link to your GoFundMe or whatever. Like mix it up. So I wanted to like find like a personal way to thank everyone that donated because I was really touched with half of these people are artists. Like I've got 20 bucks in my wallet and I know they do too, right? Like, so it means something when they donate. So, I started learning on Canva how to do photoshopping. So I've been thanking each individual person by placing the coffee shop girl in like a silly picture with them and either making up a fictitious story about this adventure we're on or thanking them with like a fun, silly memory that we had through the years. Because, like I said, people from like people I went to high school with to people that I knew right now and only for a year have donated. And so it's been really interesting to review all these people from different areas of my life that wanted to just help me get there. What's crazy is the amount I'm fundraising is probably only 1/3 of the total costs. We all know Edinburgh is crazy, but mostly this year it's crazy because the Canadian exchange rate is like heartbreakingly low. Like I
Oh,
like I was I will never do this again, but I crunched the numbers of like what the exchange rate was in 2015 when I went and what the prices were. It's like almost double this year. It's cuckoo banana rama lama ding dong pants. Like that's the only word I can think to describe it. But I've committed to it. I'm gonna make it happen. Not only have I been fundraising, just like 24 hours ago, I found a UK company that I'm now gonna co-produce the show with, which is huge.
amazing.
Yeah, so they're gonna come in and help offer some, like, cash flow support as well as producing support, which is huge, and you know what? I just met them from randomly doing the Brighton Fringe, like,
Amazing.
8 years ago,
That's
and
incredible.
out of
That's
the blue
incredible.
contacted me because of this
Yeah.
Facebook message.
That's incredible. I mean, the exchange rate and the way and the expensive things, the pandemic has really done a number on travel in general.
Oh.
Pre-pandemic, I know because I was gonna go to England for the first time for my birthday,
What?
and it didn't happen because I was leaving in April of not
What?
2020. So that didn't happen, but I can compare how much it was going to cost me then with how much it would cost me now, and it is astronomical.
Mhm. It's
Compare that with, we have a real issue in the arts right now of both funding being cut and also audiences not returning in the same way
yes.
they had been before the pandemic. We even see that with the Fringe, like Toronto Fringe
Oh, yeah.
has been struggling the past couple of years, which is tragic to me because it's my
I
favorite
know.
thing.
Oh, like, favorite time of year in Toronto, like, I live
Yeah.
for the Toronto Fringe.
Exactly. I'm so happy about the Soul Pepper partnership,
Me too.
and how that's coming together, and what that's doing for them. But it's still like the fact that this 40-year-old,
An
40-year-old?
institution, yeah,
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
that it's has to struggle at all. Um, and I think that without that, I think we have to address the the disparity and the things that are happening in the arts right now,
Oh, yeah.
and really, I think we need to be transparent about it. Like
That's why I've
we,
changed my budget, like, even on my GoFundMe, because I think people didn't realize how much it costs to get over there or even just
yeah,
get a room there.
yeah. Oh, I mean, you're also like trying to get a room at the most expensive time of year in Edinburgh.
When the
So
population triples, so they can
yes,
charge whatever they want.
yes, absolutely. So I think we need to address those those disparities in the industry, and also maybe talk, this might not be the forum for it, but like talk about what are theaters doing in terms of like their programming to like are you just doing what you used to do, or are you making changes to like address what your audience is like? Are you really looking at like why aren't people coming back?
Yeah, like, who is your audience right now, and how can you bring more people in the door?
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's honestly why I'm overjoyed with the Soul Pepper collab with the Fringe, because I think it's good to shake things up and have not only a new Fringe hub, but also, like, the East End is full of artists. So I feel like it was only time before we had a little bit more of an East End hub for the Fringe. I know the West is cool and the West is always a party, but, like, I actually think it'll be interesting to see if this brings in a whole new wave of audience members that maybe, because they're living in the East and they have a few kids, it's a bit of a trek to just, like, randomly pop over to Randolph to see a show. But if you're just going to Soul Pepper or Alumni Theater, which is around the corner, or, what else? The Aki Studio is one of the venues. Like, there's a whole nice little chain of theaters happening over there.
I mean, one of the things that fringes like Edmonton and Winnipeg have is this finite area where
I
the
love that.
venues are. You can walk. It's no more than 10 minutes
Yes.
between venues, which is
Amazing.
listen. It's amazing because you don't have to do the mad dash.
Yeah.
Because we've all in the past done that, like stared at
Oh,
our watch as we run from
holy.
Tarragon to Factory, trying to figure out, am I going to make this show? So it's good to have like 3 venues in the Soul Pepper area,
Yeah.
as well as like the ones that are like Aki Studio and Alumni, which are close,
Yeah.
which
Where you can go door to door, so to speak.
absolutely where you could just not have to run quite as desperately.
Oh my gosh. There's always, I love the comical thing of like seeing people on bikes just like zooming by, people in Ubers, people running. You're like, oh, you're all trying to get to St. Vladimir's for the 3:15 showing of such and such. Like,
Listen, we've all seen it. We've all seen people leave a show at Tarragon and start to immediately
running.
run, which, it's just the nature of the Toronto Fringe. And it's good to have a venue where we don't quite have to run quite as desperately.
I hope so. I hope so. It'll be interesting to see because this will ultimately be kind of an experiment year because it's the first year with such a large amount of venue changes and stuff like that.
Huge venue changes. And I think, venue changes are always kind of dangerous because people have venues in their head. So that's going to be interesting. But also, like, this is not a short term partnership. This is a
Yeah.
long term partnership. And it kind of feels to me like back in the day of like the Mervish parking lot, which felt like a home
Yes.
for the Fringe for a
Absolutely.
really long time. All the other like the Fringe patio, Bathurst and Dundas and the Transact kind of felt like I hate to use the word, but transient homes, like not like permanent places. And this feels like a home.
Yes. I could see this being successful for many, many years. And I fully agree. The Mervish Alley will always be like my fringe tent, so to speak.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now you mentioned not having been to the Montreal Fringe. Um,
Yeah.
is it you've done the other fringes, a bunch of the other fringes
I think
in
I've
Canada.
done every like major city Canadian fringe with the exception of Montreal and Halifax.
Mm. It's okay. I have to ask, um, how prepared were you for the difference between a Toronto Fringe and a Winnipeg and Edmonton Fringe when you went?
Oh, it blew my little like 21-year-old mind. Like it's so funny because I remember I think we chatted on your podcast about this before I went. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, they fine, they're great." When I got there, like it was fine and great, but only because I adapted like lickety split to the Goliath that was the Winnipeg Fringe. Um, Speaking of some people that met me at the Winnipeg Fringe donated to my GoFundMe. Just that's a very cute,
That's
like
so wonderful.
just because they saw the show there. But anyways, yeah, no, I will say though, and I'm sure you'd agree with this, the Winnipeg Fringe is welcoming the way it sounds Montreal Fringe is welcoming. Like they will take a chance on a new show if it sounds like something that someone has done and polished up and is ready for performance.
100%. It's very warm that way. It's
Yeah.
very welcoming. And one of the things that I found when I was there was the way that volunteers will become champions for shows they've
Yeah.
seen,
They can
which
make it worth your show.
100%. Like, so it's always like, hey, volunteers, come see our show.
Oh yeah. I was using those 10 comps every single show because I also went from like a 115 seat venue to a 330 seat venue, which
Hmm.
was a bit of a shock, but I'm proud to say by the end of the festival, I think we sold out like the last 3 shows.
Which is
Um,
incredible in Winnipeg. Like, especially
yeah,
as somebody, a lot of fringes are like, oh, I see these people every year when they come,
yeah,
which can
their comfort theater.
exactly. And that can feel like a barrier for somebody for whom it's their first fringe. So you really have to like, if you sell out 3 shows your first time in Winnipeg,
Yep.
you're doing really great.
Yeah, I did luck out. Like I was in a venue that I didn't realize had a lot of those like I guess legacy performers, if you will, that are there every year. So I got really lucky in the sense of who I became friends with. Like I had the very chaotic but sweet James and Jamesy shouting my show out after they performed. I had Mike Delamont, God is a Scottish drag queen, being like, if you want to take a spin on something crazy and feisty, check out that Redheaded Coffee Shop Girl after. Like I had some really lovely Fringe friends that I'm still friends with to this day. Like I texted Mike literally this morning, I think. Like where we've become lifelong friends, and it all started with acts of kindness of them being like, oh my gosh, like this girl is like going for it. Like let's show our support.
I think that people who have never toured, fringe festivals don't know the unity and family that
Needed.
forms between fringe performers. Like,
So necessary.
it's so necessary, and it's also, like, something that, like, I toured, like, to Montreal, Winnipeg, Calgary, and Edmonton in 2012, and
Whoa.
it is
That's a tour and a half.
people that were on that tour, like, I'm still friends with them, and they're still the Fringe family. Like, there is,
Yeah.
that's just the thing. I remember, one fellow, when we were in Calgary, ended up having his appendix out, and he was from Australia, and everybody was like, "Okay, does he have insurance, or do we have to pass a hat?" Everybody was ready at the end of their shows to raise money to cover his bills. Like,
Yeah, that's huge.
that's the incredible thing about the Fringe family, and I will never forget it.
Oh yeah, some of the most giving, loving, kind, generous people I've ever met. And the crazy part is, of course, we're all artists with 20 bucks in our pockets, but still, these are just people that want to give and want to make sure everyone feels supported. It's incredible.
Absolutely. I've also seen, like, the thing where it's like, so, oh, Winnipeg was great for you. Calgary, not so much. I know. I'm buying drinks because my show's
Yeah,
doing, and it's you don't find that anywhere else.
I know. Because I will say, my first year in Edmonton, which was right after Winnipeg, I feel like it kind of set up false expectations of like every city is loving and welcoming. Oh, I had to work, I'm gonna say 5 times as hard to get Edmonton on my side. Like, it's a good thing that I was 21 the first time because I was hitting the pavement for 4 and 5 hours flyering. I was doing all the little comedy and cabaret spots I could. Like, I was probably working like 15-hour days, and it did pay off, but, like, at the end, I think I practically fell over into the plane to get home.
100%. Edmonton is a great Fringe, but it is a lot of work. I didn't realize this until I started, you know, flyering. Is there's a significant portion of people for whom they don't realize that there's a theater portion to
Oh, I
Fringe.
know. It's
They're
not.
there for the food trucks and the buskers and the beer tent,
Yep, and the
and so
touring
you have
industry.
to sort of punch through that and, like, "No, this was actually built around a theater festival. It's
We did
not just these
300
things."
shows. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a lot of work. It's probably the most work out of any of the Canadian Fringes.
I also think it's the most realistic portrayal of, like, what the kind of work you might need to do in Edinburgh if you're like, I'll just last minute grab a spot at the free Fringe and show up and see what happens." Well, then you're gonna be pulling those 16-hour days.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you know, it's an important lesson to learn, like,
Yeah.
but that kind of thing will carry you through. If you've been successful at the Edmonton Fringe, you're gonna be
Yeah.
successful in any Fringe in Canada
Like,
because you
she
know how to work.
Yep, and I also think you'll know how to work at the Adelaide Fringe, which is the 2nd biggest, and then, of course, Edinburgh, the biggest, because I think Edmonton is the 3rd biggest in the world, I
Edmonton for a period of time was the second biggest, but
Right,
Adelaide sort of took that crown,
right.
a little while ago. So
We got more
Edmonton,
circus tents.
I know. They sort of went their direction, and we're like, "Well, this is how you do it." Have you been to Adelaide?
Right. I was actually, unfortunately, one of my sort of losses during the pandemic was, I was supposed to be at Gluttony, which is one of their big venues at the Adelaide Fringe, so I feel you, but I luckily, before the pandemic in 2019, to sort of check it out in anticipation of going, um, a friend of mine, Lacey Jook, was working the Australian cruise ships as a performer, so I went and visited her, and then I stopped by Adelaide Fringe on my way back to Canada, and it was incredible. It's so different than Edmonton or Edinburgh because it is all circus tents. It's very cabaret and comedy and circus focused. I think, like, I wasn't gonna bring Coffee Shop Girl there. I was actually gonna bring From Judy to Betty because it's much more like cabaret, dame with a microphone doing impressions. Um, because that's just kind of what they're looking for. I feel like there's also a connection between like Montreal's Cirque du Soleil and Adelaide and its circus hub too. Like, and I didn't know that until I arrived. And I was like, there are so many Quebecers here. Somebody explained this to me. Like, it's crazy. Like, this is where they go. This is their Edinburgh Fringe, but
Mm.
circus style to sell their circus shows.
I think one of the, just going to more than one fringe and experiencing that fringe, whether it's another city in Canada or another country, is such an eye opener to just like, oh, this is the culture of this fringe. Like, to know what does the average Edmonton fringe goer want, which is different from what the average Toronto fringe goer wants, and Winnipeg. It's like all of these like different places, different desires, what they want in theater is so different. And as a performer, going to different venues and having to be like, I have 4 hours to put this show in this venue that is so different from any venue I've ever been in before is just such a lot. Like, once you've got that machine oiled, you
Yeah.
can move into any space.
True. Absolutely true. Yeah. I also love some of the fringe touring artists that have been doing it for forever and ever that are like, I'm just not going to tech. I'll just show up at the first show. And I'm like, I'm glad you can do that, but my stress levels aren't there yet.
I haven't met them yet. I haven't met
There's
them.
a few out there.
I'm sure there are a few. I'm sure there are a few.
And I
Because I'm
don't
sure that
Yeah.
there's people who are like, I don't need lights. I
That's
just like turn them on, turn them
They
off.
need, like the Martin Dockerys and the John Bennetts, they honestly just need lights on.
Yeah.
And so they'd rather spend those 3 hours, rehearsing or fine tuning or picking jokes. Like, and I have such a respect for that because I am not that person. I am must be over prepared to feel like low stress levels.
I mean, low stress levels are so important, especially if it's like your first time at that fringe or your first time
Yeah.
performing a show. It is
Yeah.
like sometimes all I can do to not vomit on that first day.
'Cause you don't have that built-in audience yet. Like, that's an additional task for you for that point. Absolutely.
But that's something that somebody who is a John Bennett, somebody who is like those artists, they
They
have the
been
built in.
worked
People
in.
are going to come and see them regardless.
Yeah, they just want to see like what are they up to this year? What crazy, kooky, cool story or journey are they going to take us on? Absolutely.
Yeah. So now that this is the 10th anniversary of this particular show, and like 10th anniversary of like doing it at the Toronto Fringe, I think Toronto 10th anniversary for
So
Edinburgh.
many anniversaries. I
So
believe
many anniversaries.
11 years at Toronto Fringe, 10 years at Edinburgh Fringe, and 12 years of debuting it. Period. So it's crazy.
Yeah. What are you most looking forward to performing it this time?
Honestly, I think because this is the second time that it will be at Toronto Fringe, like ever, is I'm really excited and hopeful that I can bring in like a new generation of people that the coffee shop girl can make laugh. Like that would fill my heart with so much joy if I could just, latch onto sort of the new generation of graduates and see if what I'm saying resonates with them. Because a lot of it is very universal. It's ultimately about finding your footing in the world and pursuing your passions and just doing what feels right for you. And so I think and I hope it's something that like I think I'm a young millennial or whatever. I'm hoping that like Gen Z will be like, "What's up? She's funny." Like, that's what I'm hoping for.
I think that's all any of us can hope for.
And also like it would also make my day if it would make my year if people that had seen it 10 years ago came to see it and see like how it's grown because it has and I feel like a much more capable performer and stuff like that.
I think there's always like the idea of like, can I bring a show back to the Fringe? Like,
know.
is that
I
a thing?
hesitated for so long.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think we all would, right? Like, oh, I
Yeah.
did this show there. Do I bring it back? But then also, like, if people love this show,
Yeah.
they're going to see it. They're probably going to see it again.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I have a good feeling. I've had like a lot of nice people be like, "Oh, it's so cute that this is back. I'll come." Like,
That's awesome. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you giving me some time, and especially you always, because you were that first guest on Stageworthy, you always have a little place in my heart as like guest number one. So I really appreciate
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Same thing when you asked me. I was like, I love this. It's so full circle.